Hi guys, my name is Devin Russell and today I'm going to talk to you about databases. However, before we get into databases, it is important to discuss what data is. Data is a set of variables that can be measured, collected, reported, and analyzed. Now that we know what data is, let's talk about databases. So what exactly is a database? A database is simply an organized collection of data. What makes up a database, though? You can comprise your data, manipulate your data, and add and take away the information you need. More specifically than covering the broad topic of databases, we are going to talk about two important types of databases, SQL and NoSQL. We're going to dive into the worlds of SQL and NoSQL. More specifically, we're going to discuss the differences between the two, as well as the pros and cons of each. First, we are going to talk about SQL. This stands for Structured Query Language. SQL is a special purpose program that is designed to manage data in RDBMS, which stands for Relational Database Management System. Now I want to discuss a bit of history regarding SQL. This concept was first created at IBM in the 1970s. It was designed originally to create and manipulate data. Originally, IBM wanted to call this Sql. That name was already trademarked, so the company decided to change the name to SQL. Let's discuss SQL throughout the years. It was first formalized in 1986. Following this, a minor revision was made to the program. Following this, a major revision was made to the program in 1992, and from 1999 to 2008, things were added and taken away to improve SQL as a whole. So why exactly is SQL used so often? Well, big businesses that use big data typically use the SQL database. The other plus to SQL is that if you become certified in SQL, then you will probably be able to use a variety of database types. The other important aspect of SQL that big businesses utilize is the easiness to access their information. Next, we're going to talk about the language elements of SQL. These elements include clauses, expressions, queries, predicates, and statements. The word query has been thrown around a lot in the presentation, so I find it important to talk about what exactly a query is. A query describes desired data. More specifically, it is a list of columns that include final results. This is performed with the select statement within SQL. Obviously, SQL isn't the only database type that can be used. Below, I have 4 alternatives to SQL. These alternatives include 4D query language, BQL, Datalog, and HDSQL. All of these listed have some different aspects from SQL, but all are viable alternatives that can be used. Now that we have talked about SQL briefly, I would like to talk about NoSQL. NoSQL actually stands for non-SQL or non-relational. So more specifically, NoSQL is a mechanism that provides the storage and retrieval of data. Like I said in the last slide, this NoSQL idea means not only SQL. In fact, SQL can do far more than SQL. Non-SQL can do far more than SQL. We are now going to dive into the history of NoSQL. The term was first used in 1998. Actually, the term originally had nothing to do with SQL. In fact, as of July of 2015, NoSQL was one of the most used databases within big businesses. There are 5 main types and examples that have to deal with NoSQL. These types and examples are column, document, key value, graph, and multi-model. Here are some key characteristics that make NoSQL what it is. NoSQL has easy replication support. It is schema-free. NoSQL also is consistent and simple. Now let's discuss the difference between SQL and NoSQL. NoSQL is actually used more often than SQL. NoSQL fulfills the needs of big businesses more so than SQL. The biggest difference between the two, however, is that SQL deals with relational databases, while NoSQL deals with non-relational databases. The diagram presented on the slide talks about the pros and cons of both SQL and NoSQL. I'm going to read a pro from each of these. SQL is proven to be more mature with a wide variety of tools. A pro to NoSQL is that it runs well on distributed systems. So in summary, a database stores info and data in an organized fashion. SQL and NoSQL are both equally important in the database and business world. So the question now stands, which system would you prefer to use?